All right, we are live.
Alrighty. Well, I guess we all know what this case is about sexual harassment case. So one of the questions that I'm supposed to start off with is, what is sexual harassment to you guys?
Any number of things. I mean, obviously in the case, there was things that were said that made her feel uncomfortable. There were things that were done physically that made her feel uncomfortable. It's not just physical contact, but it's inappropriate contact. It's inappropriate language, really anything that would make somebody feel sexually uncomfortable, if you will.
Yep. You got anything, Carl?
Yeah, my first thought is any behavior that I don't think the word is uncomfortable there, Vaughn. You got to be kind of careful there. And I don't know how legally how they separate it all out, but I would say any sexual advances towards somebody that's unwanted. Does that make sense? So it can be verbal, it can be physical.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, because I don't think, like if I go to work and somebody tells a dirty joke, that's not sexual harassment. I can walk out at any time. I don't know how.
Sure.
It's it's not workplace professional, but it's definitely not sexual harassment.
Well, I guess it could be depending on how you feel. I mean, from your standpoint, that might be the case. From my standpoint, I would agree with you. I just would walk away, turn around, and not give it any attention. But, if we want to use current events and say that Trump's locker room talk, all that stuff that he's been hit for, if somebody were to overhear it, it's not about them, but they're hearing it and it's inappropriate. That's, I guess, where I get the uncomfortable part from, is if it makes them feel uncomfortable, like you said, it's inappropriate, it shouldn't be said, but it could be taken as sexual harassment or sexual harassment towards women or men, depending on who's having the conversation. So that's where I was going with the uncomfortable piece, but I totally see what you mean too.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that.
Sure.
To me, that's the difference is your ability to leave the situation and what the sexual references are aimed towards.
Sure.
Anyway.
Sure.
No, yeah, that. I mean, pretty much.
I was looking through. Does the case give like a legal definition? I can't remember. Do we get a? Yeah. Do we have a legal?
Based on called HR, that's basically the only thing that we have is him calling HR and HR advising him that, or not advising him, telling him he had to, but not necessarily that there was any sort of description provided. He had to report it. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, legally, what constitutes sexual harassment?
Yeah, it says in one of those, and I don't know, Jordan, I hope I'm not taking your spot, but in one of the readings, one of the readings, it said that there's a federal law prohibiting sexual harassment in the workplace is Title VII. The outlaw discriminates in employment on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. Does not explicitly mention sexual harassment, but soon after the law's fact, victims began to argue that sexual harassment at work constituted sex discrimination under Title VII. The courts were slow to accept the theory. All the cases were dismissed. Okay, so yeah, here it is. Was not typical in ruling that a male supervisor who forced several female employees to quit rather than endure sexual advances had not engaged in sex discrimination but merely expressed a personal urge. I guess it really doesn't give us a whole lot of specific definition. Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's on the second page. Are you guys seeing that? That like there was the two readings that we had from the Harvard Business School. One of them was the note on the law of sexual harassment, and then the other was the Lone Star case.
Yeah.
And it says,
Which one?
I'm in the first one, so I'm in the note on the law of sexual harassment.
Okay.
And on the second page, it says early law on sexual harassment centered on workplace situations involving unwelcome sexual advances. Courts generally regard advances as unwelcome when they are unsolicited, when the victim has done nothing to incite them, and when the victim feels them as, or views them as undesirable. The fact that a victim acquiesced to sexual demands or even participated in a lengthy sexual relationship does not mean that the perpetrator's conduct was welcomed. However, the Supreme Court has held that a plaintiff's sexually provocative speech or dress is relative to whether the advances were welcome. While many of the sexual harassments continue to involve allegations of unwanted sexual advances, it is important to note that sexual harassment encompasses any type of harassment on the basis of gender. As the Supreme Court, he explained, the critical issue is whether the members of one sex are exposed to disadvantageous terms or conditions of employment to which members of the other sex are not exposed. Simply put, courts ask whether the harassment occurred because of the sex. This causation requirement can be met by harassing behavior that is directed at a given gender and is motivated by hostility toward the gender, even if it lacks sexually explicit content. It is also fulfilled by conduct that is not directed at a particular individual or group, but is disproportionately offensive or demeaning to one sex. Harassment claims may involve women accusing men, men accusing women, or accusations between members of the same sex.
Vaughn, so anyway, I think that kind of it can be broke down into on the page 2 there, like you said.
Yeah.
There's the quid pro quo, which is where somebody says basically, you know, sleep with me or you're fired.
Yeah, that's one of them, yeah.
Anything similar to that, or having a hostile work environment.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it did say, what was the other one? It also fulfilled by conduct that it is not directed at a particular individual or group, but is disproportionately offensive or demeaning to one sex. So it's it's massive, and it's
and I don't know that it would matter if it's to one sex or if it's just a raunchy work environment that's what was the definition up there? It was, how did they call it? Anyway, unwanted.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Sorry, I needed a refresher there.
That's all right.
No, yeah, that's good. I think we got the base of what sexual harassment is. Going on to the next question. Based on Julia's story, does her situation constitute sexual harassment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Not just by what was said, but by what he
so.
did the day before, right? He said he put his hand down her shirt or something, and that he said, nobody's going to believe you.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest issue with this type of stuff is it's usually his word against hers or her word against his.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of rough because she's in, I understand her predicament. She's like, I'd just rather deal with it instead of losing my job. But just like the legal counsel advised, like, what if something happened later and then we're held liable? It's definitely sexual harassment, whether she wants it or whether she wants it to be termed that way, whether she wants it to advance towards a legal situation that way. It's sexual harassment.
What's What's the criminal? I didn't look at this soon enough to look up criminal code on that. Maybe that's a state by state thing, but I think even if it's not in the workplace, this behavior is certainly criminal.
Right.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like if it's just a random stranger put his hand down my wife's shirt, I don't know if he'd live to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly is things that can be said or done at work that would get you fired from your job but wouldn't be criminal. But to touch another person, obviously we live in an environment that's not acceptable, and that could be, I mean, she could go so far with that, in terms of like emotional damage and all this stuff that absolutely, to your point, Carl, could be way beyond work and be taken as governmentally illegal, and therefore
that's
yeah. Well, didn't she even say in there too that she didn't want to let her husband know because she was afraid
his temper?
I mean, yeah.
That's great. I certainly would hope that my wife would talk to me about that.
Right.
I'm joking about that. He wouldn't worth talking.
Yeah. All right. So is this is it quid pro quo or a hostile work environment? What do you guys think?
Sorry, I'm trying to read through it real quick.
No, you're good.
Well, I would think it's hostile because it's not like he was using it to say, hey, do this with me or do that with me, and I'm going to give you a job. Rather, he was making advances towards her. So it's not like sexual harassment in the sense that if you do this, I'm going to give you this. And so she consented, if you will. Rather, it was forced upon her. And so, yeah, it would be hostile because, right now it's just bad language and him touching her, but it could lead towards, much further issues. And especially if she were to allow it to continue, he could become more aggressive.
Here's why bonds is something that I don't know if the quid pro quo. I mean, to me, it's criminal.
Right.
It's criminal just because, I mean, even if he was a random stranger and he did that, it would be illegal. I mean, you can't just go put your hands on people. But I think because he's in a position of leadership, he didn't imply do this or else, but the reality of it is do this or else. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So he didn't say, go along with this or I'm going to fire you. But the alternative to her not going along with that is what? It's not like she's going to say, I'm not going to go along with this, and then he's just going to be like, okay, well, I'll keep going anyway. Or I'm going to tell somebody, and it's not like, to me, because he's in a position of leadership and it's illegal, it's either do or die.
Yeah, no, and I see where you're coming from, but I think she's not in a position to, say, lose her job or get a promotion. So it's not like it's an if-then type of deal, where if you do this, I'll either promote you or I'm not going to terminate you or something like that. Rather, he's using it against her to just say, you're not going to do anything about it. and nobody's going to believe you type of thing. So I think that that's where the harassment part comes in, but I could totally see your side too. I see what you mean.
Yeah, it says here that that there's not enough information here to say that it's a quid pro. She mentions that she is afraid of being fired, which may imply that there is a quid pro quo. But based on the story she told, there is a hostile work environment.
Yeah, so it's kind of playing both angles, really.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, is that if she doesn't play along, I think her job is in jeopardy.
Sure. Like if she went to somebody that he could fire her.
If she doesn't put up with it, then yeah, I think that.
Sure.
I would say that's the case in any job environment where you engage in illegal activity.
Sure.
Illegal and immoral. Like if one person goes, one person doesn't, it's gonna cause risk.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I agree.
All right, from the next question, from reading the note on sexual harassment, do you think, is it DeCose, got accurate advice when he called the counsel's office?
Yeah. I mean, I think what he did, I wouldn't have done what he did personally, because he should have. I would not have acknowledged that I heard it, because now it's like he's being influenced to potentially do something that he shouldn't do. What he should do is proceed forward with calling HR. Now he's got himself in jeopardy. He's got his job in jeopardy. He's got liability for himself in jeopardy. What he should do is call and move on. He shouldn't. I think he got accurate advice from the counsel's office. I guess is what I'm getting at. And he needs to just accept that and move on and tell her, I have to do this for the sake of himself, for the sake of her, for the sake of the company, that he just needs to say, no, I'm doing this. So he got good advice, but he's not necessarily following it.
Yeah, he definitely needs to be following that advice, I think, for sure.
Because what is meeting at the end of the day going to do? All that it's going to do is her try to influence him to not report it, right? I mean, what he should be saying is, I'm going to report this, because he's leaving that door open to be influenced to not report it. And if something were to happen, again, he puts himself back in major liability and an issue with the company. He could lose his job. He could be then held liable, and then that could have legal ramifications as well.
Yeah, that would not be good. All right, why might a lawyer representing the company insist on instituting a formal investigative process?
They need to document and handle things immediately, so that they are not held more liable than they already are. Because there's a difference between a rogue wolf and systematic decay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If they hear about it and then they brush it under the rug, then it shows systematic problems and the whole company is at risk. And so when and if she chooses to sue the company, so I guess there's two parts of it. The first thing is obviously because it's the right thing to do. You know, as a manager, you got to get rid of bad managers who are taking advantage of your workforce. You have to provide, I think, justice in this case, and you have to make sure that nobody else thinks that this is company sanctioned.
Well, I think that's exactly it. The issue is that if they didn't do due diligence and investigate both sides, so the investigation is not just to hear her side, it would be to hear his side as well, then they could wrongfully terminate him if the accusations were false.
Right.
So they have to do this and to protect both sides, but then at the same to protect both sides really is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And protect them, because if you wrongfully terminate somebody and it went to some sort of legal issues and it was found to be unfounded, then you could be paying a massive payout towards an individual who was wrongfully terminated too.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's only worth their time and money to make sure that they get it right, and that's only going to be possible through truly investigating the situation.
Alrighty. Well, we'll just keep moving along here. There's a couple parts to this thing, so. How would you evaluate Jack DaCosta's options at this point? And what do you think he should do?
He's got to first talk to Julia and say, hey, look, I was coming in to talk to you and I heard part of this conversation. I'm sorry I didn't mean to, but I heard part of it and I can't pretend that I didn't hear it. So he's got to talk to her and get everything out in the open with her. He's got to, at least if I was in that case, I would, hear her side of it and then basically say, hey, look, I'm sorry this has happened, but we have to deal with it and we have to have you come forward somehow. Can you make a formal complaint? Will you make a formal complaint? He's got to document it. He's got to talk to RF. The company has to investigate it. They've got to handle things.
Yeah, I mean, he made his situation more difficult by talking to Julia about it. He should have just left it and did his part as a manager and moved on. So at this point, I think he needs to just report it and not even talk to Julia, not even revisit it with her, just maybe revisit it with her at the end of the day, but not wait to report it until he talks to her. He's got a headache. He's got all this stuff that he's dealing with. What he needs to do at this point is just right his wrongs. There's no point in digging the hole any deeper. He made a mistake by talking to her about it. He should have just reported it and moved on. I understand why he, just took it to legal and didn't share his name, didn't share names at all to begin with, because he just was collecting information on how he should proceed. But once he found out what he should be doing, that's absolutely what he should have done, and he should have proceeded forward with calling the EEO and taking care of it that way.
Sorry, Vaughn, I'm missing part of the story here. What I thought that he was going in to talk to her, right? And he just overheard her talking to somebody else on the phone.
Right.
Isn't that what happened?
That is what happened, but then because of what he heard, because of her crying and saying that he had put his hand down her shirt, he was troubled by what he was hearing. He just didn't know what he should do, so he called the legal counsel, and they advised him that he is required to report it, or else he could be held liable. And so, so basically, he hadn't shared with legal what his name was, what the name of the defendant or the accuser or anything. Nothing had been shared at that point. He just took the advice just so he should know what to do. And then he went to the restroom or something like that. And on his way back, he stopped by Julia's desk, pulled it into his office and said, hey, Julia, I just want you to know I heard what you were talking about. I called legal. This is what they're saying I need to do. And he shouldn't have done that. So long story short, because what legal told him to do was report it to the EEO and then the Equal Employment Opportunity Office, and that they would open an investigation.
Okay, so you don't think he should have talked to Julia, or you don't think that he should have told Julia that HR that legal told?
I don't think he should have talked to Julia or told her anything at all. I think he should have left it as is, reported it as a manager, and say, "This is what I've heard," and move on.
How come?
Because now, just for what exactly is taking place, so now he's making it aware to Julia what he's heard. She's trying to influence him away from it, and could potentially influence him away from it entirely. But then, two, he is putting himself in a position where trust is eroded between him and Julia. So say he does report it without consulting Julia, or even does report it and consults Julia and says, "I'm doing it anyways." Well, now Julia, it could have resentment towards him. And if they continue working together, then there could be greater conflict between them. And so I just look at the whole situation. She's embarrassed by the whole situation too. Had he not talked to her, there would have been none of that. There would have been the investigation, but she would have never known that who heard or who did it or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just skimmed through this. I didn't have time. I didn't get home till like 8:15. I was eating dinner and stuff. So I just skimmed through it, and I didn't catch that detail. That legal. Anyway, I would have thought that he should go talk to Julie, but when legal said just turned over to somebody else, then yeah, I definitely see.
Yeah.
I guess that's the advantage of having a big company. I'm always used to working for a small person where the manager has to take care of everything.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, we'll just keep moving along here. This next session's kind of a little bit different from just the normal questions that we're supposed to ask. That I'm supposed to assign you guys a role, either as a potential victim of harassment, accused harasser, a bystander, or a legal counsel.
You should be a harasser.
Role playing, huh?
With your assigned role, you're supposed to identify the most important things you want to see in the new policy and procedures that your organization is formulating to govern sexual harassment issues. Be prepared to defend your choice, as other people may not agree with you.
Cool.
So, whatever you guys want to choose, you can either be the potential victim of harassment, the accused harasser, the bystander, or the legal counsel.
I'll be the accused.
Go for it, Carl.
The accused harasser.
I'll be the potential victim then.
Okay.
So we're supposed to just say what we would want in a policy. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it just says to identify the most important things you want to see in the new policy and procedures.
Just to make sure that I'm not being wrongfully accused by one person with no evidence, no.
So a fair investigation for both sides.
Yeah, fair investigation that one person doesn't destroy my career.
Right. It's not just one person's word.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
But that's the whole problem with sexual harassment, is it can be very secretive. It can be something that is difficult to tie down. So I don't know.
I agree with that.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah, that, as somebody who could potentially be accused, I would
Cool.
just want to.
Yeah, and I would say maybe we just tackle that piece first, is just the accused portion. I would say so. The accused has to have a chance to defend themselves. So a fair investigation. I would say from an accused standpoint that there needs to be. Well, I guess it all just kind of comes under fair investigation. To your point, Carl, there has to be evidence.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes there's not, like I'm just thinking on the other side of that is somebody who's been victimized. What evidence do you have? Because you'd have phone or something. But,
right. Well, especially if, like in this situation where there was constant conversation that was
yeah.
inappropriate. At some point, she should have recorded it, and then she has evidence,
But she doesn't. I mean, the problem with her is she wants to continually be a victim. I'm not trying to blame her, but
Sure.
she definitely doesn't want to defend herself.
Yeah, she's not doing her part to stand up.
Yeah, she's she's an easy victim.
Yeah.
So I would say from the harassed standpoint, policy would be that if it's said, if there's body language, or if there's action, taking action, physical contact of some sort, that would be considered inappropriate. Inappropriate language, inappropriate body language, inappropriate action would be considered a violation of the policy.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that one.
I don't know how long it needs to be, and if that's part of your write-up there, Jordan. Is that part of the write-up, is you have to share our written policy?
It doesn't really say. I'm just making some notes, so if I do have to, then
You can go with that.
yeah,
Cool.
I can go with what's said. All right. Well, just to, I guess, wrap it up then, I'm supposed to tell you what actually happened in the Lone Star case. This is a real case, even though the company and individuals have been distinguished. When Jack called the corporate counsel, he forgot about caller ID. The lawyer used the information he gave her to figure out the people he was talking about. She contacted the Lone Star EEO, which launched a formal investigation. The EEO tried hard to get Martinez to cooperate. French denied all charges, claiming that Martinez had made up her story to protect herself from pending layoffs. DeCoste was asked for evidence, but he didn't have any. Julia Martinez's husband found out what was going on, beat up Julia, and forced her to quit.
Dang.
Sounds like a winner.
No kidding.
French survived the investigation with only a bruised reputation. He blamed everything on DeCoste for calling corporate counsel. So much animosity between DeCoste and the French that DeCoste left the company after 3 months.
Wow.
So I'm just supposed to ask you, as just a wrap up, what was Lone Star's sexual harassment policy? Another part, but it cut off on my paper, so let me hurry and grab it.
Oh, I just went to it. Okay, so what was Lone Star's sexual harassment policy? If Lone Star had one, did Jack know anything about it? What policies, procedures, or training might have improved the situation Jack found himself in? Would the policy you created as a group have been helpful to Jack? Could clear policies and procedures have helped to avoid any of the final consequences of the case. I would say, what was Lone Star's sexual harassment policy? It was that anybody is required to report it if they see it or heard it.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether they were involved, bystander, whatever. If Lone Star had one, did Jack know anything about it? Jack knew nothing about it. Obviously, as a manager, he should have known something. And so what policies, procedures, or training should have been done? I mean, that's like manager 101. That's like a basics that you should kind of have set up. And I mean, it's not like this is a small company. They were talking about hundreds of employees, even thousands of employees that could potentially be laid off. This is a large company. They did a really poor job at setting him up as a manager to take care of those. I know he's an engineer, but at the same time, he's a manager. So he should know those company policies. Even the front line should know what their rights are. If you're a victim of it or an accused of it, you should be able to know what your company's corporate policy is so that, you know, again, if you're an accused, you can also call HR and say, hey, I'm hearing this, and I'm hearing that I'm getting attacked for these things. I just want to make it known that I'm not doing these things, so you could start your own, defense for it. So,
Yeah.
I think what we created in the general framework would have been helpful for Jack, but at the same time, what he was given was clear. He just didn't know that that was even out there, and he didn't end up following it. So clear policies could have helped him, but he just chose to ignore it anyways.
I think that goes back to Vaughn, like what you said is, if he would have followed legal's counsel, reported it, and then let them take care of it, then he wouldn't have created that animosity, and there's a good chance he wouldn't have got Julie in trouble.
Yeah, no
Just
kidding.
somebody with a little bit more sensitivity would have taken over, and that's the thing that makes me so mad about this is it seems like, you know, Julia, there's, you know, millions of poor Julias in this world that they've probably been picked on since the time that they were 10.
Yeah.
I think if you look at rape or sexual victims, they're like 10 times more likely to be victimized in the future if they've been victimized as a child.
Right.
For whatever reason, you know, when the first person who picks on them says, be quiet, and they're quiet, then the next person can somehow, however a predator realizes, you know, looks at prey. I don't know how they do it, but they recognize it right off the bat, and they just keep picking on these people, picking on them. And it seems like the Julies of the world are going to get picked on at work, they're going to get picked on by loser husbands. It just makes me mad.
Right.
Sorry, I got off on a tangent there, but yeah, he definitely needed to follow the counsel legal and turn it over to somebody who is more familiar with it. And that's the luxury of a big company, I guess.
Yeah.
I look at the case too, and I wonder sometimes how much training he had. I mean, he probably had a little bit of training about sexual harassment, but I wonder fully how much, training he had about it and how to report it and things like that.
And just like Vaughn said, though, it doesn't even if he would have had a bunch of training, he ignored the simple advice he was given. I think his intentions were good, but
yeah,
definitely muddied the water.
Alrighty, well, I think we'll bring this this meeting. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry I know that the assignment's finished, but Vaughn, you work for Wells Fargo. Jordan, who do you work for? What do you do?
I work for Roy City. It's just like Parks and Recreation.
For Roy, so you said in Utah?
Yeah.
I guess both. I guess Roy City's not very big. Do you guys like if you guys had something come up? How would you handle
I mean, if we see it, hear it, we're told to report it.
it? And then whoever you report it to, how would they handle it? Does that make sense? Like what I'm is at some point I'm gonna have a company and it's gonna be me and 5 employees.
Yeah.
So when I hear about it, what do? You just got to think about just if it was you and 5 people in the company, how do you handle that without making everybody hate each other? Somebody's going to get screwed there.
Sure.
And that's the nature of it. Is the accused is going to say he did it, and the accused is going to say I didn't, and I don't know what do you do if you are the person that's got to handle it? That's what I want to know, is because I'm gonna have a small company. It's gonna be me and 5 people, and hopefully 10 people, and then 20 people, and then at some point, when you get big enough and you make enough money, you can hire an HR person, but you can't do it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the case where in this case, like in Julia's case, where she does not want to come forward, the only thing you could have done is transfer.
And I guess I've seen that in my place of employment. I've seen them transfer somebody because of sexual harassment. So
Yeah, I've seen it too.
You know, where she didn't want to come forward and she didn't have any evidence and she didn't want to provide any evidence, and she was obviously very distraught about it. I think that's all you could do is just say, hey, would you be interested in working somewhere else? And then you'd have to try and keep a closer eye on that on the predator.
Right, trying to accommodate both sides. Like she was trying, she said she was trying to find a different group, but
yeah. And you couldn't even accuse him. You couldn't even really talk to him about it if there's no evidence. And I don't know what
sorry.
If I had a small company and she was, I had a person who I suspected based on this happening, but didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to confront about it, didn't want to provide any evidence.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'd do. I think it would really have to hinge on who you believed. I don't know. That's tough.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
All right. So that's for the case. Do we need to talk more about the doohickeys? What do we want to do on the doohickeys?
The only part, Jordan, you brought up a good point, is just that final section. And I think that's probably just an assessment of all 3 of ours combined. So if all of us just do our own section, I've got the rowing case. Obviously, Jordan, you've got this case, the sexual harassment, and then you got diversity, right, Carl?
Yeah.
That if we all just do our own write-up based on doohickey for our section or our particular category, then that would be all that we're looking for. And if we each do our own piece and do 1,100 words or 1,000 words or whatever, then that should put us in good position.
Okay, well, here's the red flag on that. I think if you look at the doohickeys assignment, it's supposed to be the main. So the main. Let's look.
I'm sorry, Carl. What was that? It's supposed to be the main what?
If you look at the doohickeys, what's it called? The rubric, the grading rubric. You're supposed to have. It's supposed to be broken up into 2 main sections. The main problem and then the 3 problems with 3 potential solutions or 4 potential solutions.
So it looks like, yeah. So what are the HR issues or problems you can identify in the doohickeys based on what you learned from the lesson? Okay, so we present those. Choose 3 issues or problems. So we present those. Those are 3 different issues or problems that we're coming up with.
There's just 4 solutions for each problem.
Exactly. So
Okay,
each.
so
go ahead.
So in light of all the problems and solutions you identified, explain what is the most important thing to focus on. Describe why you think this is the key issue. Describe pros, cons, obstacles, etc. This portion of the paper should include deep reflection and application of content studied in the class as it informs the problem and solution. This isn't a single paragraph repeating what you already said about the problem and solution. Give a detailed account that explains why this issue is the highest priority, including detailed information about how the solution will be implemented. Submission. This should have 2 main sections, the problem section and the key issue section. This should be a substantial part of the paper, not a small paragraph. So if you and I, so if we break it up into problems from chapter 2, problems from chapter 3, etc., and then we give it to Chelsea and she adds her little bit, are we going to have, does that make sense?
Yeah, well, here's how I take it.
I'm worried that our paper is all going to be problem and solution and not the key issue section.
Right. So here's how I take it. That's why if each of us writes a 1,000-word write-up, and it could just be on one problem. So you're going to choose one problem from diversity. I'm going to choose one problem from the rowing team. And Jordan, you'll choose one problem from tonight, sexual harassment. And we do just one problem or one issue that we're seeing, and then we write 4 solutions for that problem. Then we're going to have basically a total, obviously, then of 3 problems and 12 solutions. But it's all going to be, each of our 4 solutions are going to be particular to our section. Then when we get those all over to Chelsea, what she's going to do is highlight what she feels, and that's I don't know if you guys care, but I'm totally fine and trust her to just make the decision on whatever she feels is the most important issue to tackle first, and then she's going to do a write-up on that and explain why. Does that make sense? Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah.
That's
and so the next thing that is chapter 5 included in this doohickeys?
Yes.
Does that make sense? Is sexual harassment part of it, or is it only chapter 4?
I see it as part of it because this is only the 3rd one that we've done, and it's supposed to include 3 weeks in each section. So it's due at the end of week 5. So it's meant to include obviously the 3 that we've gone over, which is just the rowing one, which is what I did 2 weeks ago. Then you did last week with diversity, and then it's including tonight's issue.
Okay, because for some reason I did not think it included this week's material.
Oh.
Why did I think that?
I was going to say, if you saw that somewhere, I haven't seen that, so that would be good to know. That's my bad.
I haven't seen it anywhere.
So let me see. I'm in the original doohickey setup. team through Google Plus, group discussion board, and YouTube live meetings to coordinate writings. At the end of the designated weeks, you will submit a paper via assignments in iLearn. Review the class lessons that you had up to the week the problem is due with your group. Discuss with your team how the lessons could be used to and then it just goes in the same. Required word count is between 3,500 and 5,000 words. A problem, solution. And yeah, key issue. Your team leader should submit the fourth grade. You know, it doesn't say. You bring up a good point. I assume that it's just the most three recent ones.
I'm going to find where I read that. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere.
Yeah, bring it up for sure.
It included chapters 2, 3, and 4, but not chapter 5. I will email that to you as soon as I find it.
Okay, and it could have been my poorly worded email to you guys to begin with, where I said, hey, I'll do lesson 2, you'll do lesson 3, and then Jordan will do lesson 4. That could also be where it came from too, because I had it wrong. It's 3, 4, and 5, but that was only because I was just going off of memory. Yeah.
So what did we do in chapter 2? Wasn't that strategic HR?
I don't think we did anything in chapter 2 for doohickeys. I don't think doohickey came about until week 3.
Because I think that is a major issue with the doohickeys problem is there is no strategy.
Right.
I mean, it's just like
it's not very clear.
Well, yeah, it's every man for themselves, the employees and the managers.
Right.
So they definitely need to get their crap together
there. Yeah, there's nothing in week 2, so I just think it's 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay, so I'll do diversity, my favorite.
Hey, and then we just need to make sure that Chelsea asked that we get it to her by Friday night so she can have the weekend to get it submitted on Monday morning. So as long as we get that done.
Jordan.
Yeah, what's up?
I see you got a vortex spotting scope. Are you a hunter?
I am.
What are you hunting, Roy?
We got anything. I mean, we got waterfowl, big game.
You do it right off your back window, right there?
I got a big field behind me that I can look at geese and ducks and stuff, so.
Man, you're in like the perfect duck blind. Your house. Just pop right out that window. Boom.
Geese fly right over my house every morning, so.
Really?
Yeah.
They're disgusting. Don't shoot them. Do you have a bird dog?
No bird dog. I use my buddy's bird dog.
When I was a kid, I used to love hunting ducks and geese, and then my mom would make me eat them all, and I learned real quick I didn't like hunting ducks and geese because they taste like crap.
Yeah.
All right, so
all right.
I'll post this to the community page.
I'll send you my. Do we just send it to Chelsea, or does everybody want to copy this?
I just think we all send it to Chelsea.
Yeah, I don't need to see each piece. All that I would care is to know that she'll be able to submit it. So maybe what she should do is by Sunday night she needs to send us a final product so we can all know that it's done and ready to submit.
I would ask that too, because if by Sunday night she doesn't have it done, we'll have to scramble and get it done.
Right. So maybe when we send it to Chelsea, we'll all just copy each other. That way we have each other's work. And so say something does happen to her for whatever reason, she's unable to complete it, one of us can just jump in and get that done and submit it real quick.
I would appreciate that just because I've had so many group assignments go south.
Yeah. Yeah. And unexpected stuff happens. And so hopefully nothing happens to her. But if it were to.
Who knows why she's not here tonight? She could have gotten in a car wreck or.
Right. Hopefully not.
Oh,
yeah.
Jordan, how's your mom doing?
She's better. She's doing good.
Yeah.
She's doing okay? How bad was her heart attack?
I mean, she was out for quite a while, but
That's
she's
scary,
better
man.
now. She's,
Like, is she out of the hospital?
Yeah.
Is she walking around?
yeah, she got out just a couple days ago. Probably, when was it? Monday? Yeah, Monday.
Dang.
She got out. So, yeah, she's doing good. She's doing a lot better and other freak things. So,
Yeah. I'm glad she's okay. Sorry it happened.
like you said, unexpected things happen. So,
Yeah, it's crazy.
alrighty, well,
Hey,
I'll let you fellas get to bed. So,
All right, see ya.
All right.
Vaughn, did you ever talk to your little brother?
I shot him and Josh Lindley in text, and neither of them got back to me. I'll have to shoot them again.
They're like, no comment, no comment.
No comment. So Jordan, my a guy in my ward and my little brother served together with Carl in his mission in Manchester, England.
oh, nice.
Yeah, kind of crazy, huh?
Yeah, that's.
I lived with
world.
his little brother in a flat for a while.
Yeah.
I think you'll have to ask. You'll have to ask Paul. Sorry, it's so weird calling him by his first name. I was thinking Gibbs. You gotta ask Gibbs. The flat that we lived in for the longest time did not have hot water, so we did cold showers.
Ouch.
And it was in the dead of winter too.
Oh, that sucks.
Cold showers are the worst.
Yeah, the boiler, the water boiler,
Yeah.
didn't work, and the member who owned the house lived in Ireland. Like no cell phone service.
So you had no help.
Yeah, so it was either fix it yourself or take cold showers, and I can't remember why we took cold showers for like 3 weeks before we got it fixed.
That
I
sucks.
can't remember why.
That's how
That
Ethiopia
sucks
was.
bad.
You, sir, you were in Ethiopia?
Yeah.
Are you
Oh,
serious?
And dead
I'm never
serious.
going to complain. At least we had water.
Yeah, there were some days we didn't have no water.
Oh my gosh.
Shut off at
Well,
like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night.
wow. That's crazy.
That's funny, George. People ask me sometimes, they're like, wasn't England a hard mission? And I'm like, I ate 3 meals a day and had access to a doctor. And
Pretty much America.
Yeah, you could probably tell some story about rough. Here I am whining about cold water.
No, I knew how you felt. I mean, cold water was our thing, so.
Well,
That's brutal.
my hat goes off to you. I don't know if I could have done that. Seeing poverty like that would have broke my heart.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, it would have been hard.
All right. Good night, boys.
All right, guys. Hey, we'll see you later. Thanks, Jordan.
Yep, thank you.
We'll see you, man.